I've now completed Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door twice. The first time I completed it was 20 years ago when it released in 2004 for the Nintendo GameCube, and now I've 100%ed the Thousand Year Door remake for the Nintendo Switch. So, what are my thoughts on this remake and where does it stand compared to the 6 other games in the Paper Mario series? Is it really worth it to pay $60 for a GameCube remake that only runs at 30 frames per second when the GameCube version ran at 60? I'll answer all of that and more in my review today of The Thousand Year Door. In The Thousand Year Door, Mario and Princess Peach get involved in the search for a mystical treasure that holds great fortune, but just as that plan is about to unfold, Peach is kidnapped by an alien group called the X-Nauts, and of course, our main man Mario must set out to find the mystical treasure and save the princess. The Thousand Year Door is set in the town of Rogueport, which serves as the hub world. Similar to Princess Peach's castle in Super Mario 64, Rogueport serves as the hub connecting you to all other locations in the game. The story is divided into 8 chapters and a prologue, each of which primarily takes place in one of the unique areas. Each of the major locations are designed around a specific theme. Glitzville, for example, is a floating city known for its fighting arena. The enemies and NPCs in the game range from reoccurring Mario characters like Boo to character exclusive to the game such as the X-Nauts. Along the way, Mario will meet a handful of characters that join the party. Every character has their own believable or competent story and reason for joining Mario in his quest to retrieve the crystal stars, and one aspect I remembered from playing this back when I was 19 years old was that it had a really memorable cast of characters, and now here I am at 39 years old, and I've got to say that I still feel the exact same way about these characters. They really do grow on you throughout the game, and it's reminiscent and almost as good as the legendary characters from Super Mario RPG. Now, when it comes to the gameplay and controls, this is an RPG that uses a turn-based battle system. When Mario comes into contact with an enemy in the overworld, the game transitions to a battle screen taking place on a stage. Jumping or hammering an enemy before entering combat mode will cause a first strike, which allows Mario to damage the enemy before the regular combat starts. Player controls both Mario and his currently selected partner and choose actions for each of them, which include attacking an enemy, using an item, or swapping the partner with another. Attacking and defending can be enhanced by executing timed button presses. For example, pressing the button when Mario jumps on an enemy causes him to jump on it a second time, just like in Super Mario RPG and many of the other Paper Mario games. Enemies have advantages based on their position on the stage or on their qualities. So some player attacks, such as Mario's hammer, can only target enemies on the ground, and spiky enemies will instead damage Mario if he jumps on them. It all makes sense. Outside of your basic attacks, you'll earn new advanced attacks as you progress through the story of the game, as well as a new special attack after completing each chapter. So there is plenty of variety to be had in both your attacks and strategies. There's also another layer of combat to discuss, and that's the badge system. So Mario can purchase badges from NPCs and different stores in the game, and he can find them hidden in the environment or occasionally obtain them from defeated enemies. It's a pretty rare drop, but it does happen. Each badge requires a certain amount of Mario's badge points in order to be equipped, and you earn badge points by leveling up Mario. So when equipped, these badges can permanently enhance a particular skill or aspect, or in some cases even give Mario new abilities, so the badges play a huge role in the Thousand Year Door. Throughout the game, Mario will also learn a handful of special paper abilities that will allow Mario to turn into different objects, like a paper airplane, for example. So as you're exploring areas in the game, just keep that nugget stored in the back of your mind, because there will be areas where you can't reach an item or you can't access yet, but you will be able to eventually. Very similar to what we'd see today in a Metroidvania game, where you have to gain a special or new ability to open up more of the game's map. Lastly, there's 100 star pieces hidden throughout the world map that you can use as another way to buy special badges. And then there's the shine sprites for you to find that are needed for leveling up Mario's partners. So it's wise to always explore every nook and cranny to make sure you are able to fully level up your characters and obtain every badge the game has to offer. Now, much has been debated by the internet on Twitter or X and YouTube regarding the graphics and most notably the game's performance. I'll talk first about the graphics. I think the game looks absolutely beautiful on its own merit. Then, when you compare it to the original GameCube release, you can really see that this is clearly a remake and not a remaster. Now, I only mention that because when it was first announced for Switch, many people debated if it was a remake or a remaster. And this is without a doubt a remake. You can tell that these are all new assets. Now, next up is the performance, and this is what really upsets a group of people because the Switch version runs at 30 frames per second, while the original GameCube's frame rate was doubled at 60 FPS. A lot of people were concerned that the lower frame rate would hinder specific aspects of the active time battle system, like when you have to press a button at a certain time to either block or super guard an enemy attack, and alternatively when you are attacking enemies and by pressing the attack button with the correct timing, you can do extra damage. I'm here to tell you that none of that matters. The Thousand Year Door is not a hard game, guys. None of the Paper Mario games have ever been hard. You do not need to super guard every attack in the game. However, you are easily able to guard and super guard attacks at 30 frames per second. I think throughout the whole time I played the game, I only missed guarding or super guarding a handful of times. Literally a handful, guys. So the thing everyone was complaining about is a complete non-issue and classic overreaction by the gaming community. The game being locked at 30 frames per second in no way whatsoever hinders the experience. Consider this case closed, okay? Now, let's dive into the sound. The sound department is a real highlight here, and I'll tell you why. I really enjoyed the original soundtrack, and if you insist on hearing the original soundtrack, there is a special GameCube badge that was added to the remake. By equipping the GameCube badge, the original soundtrack will play. But if you choose to do that, I am here to tell you that you will be missing out on what I believe to be an even better soundtrack. Now, the original sound director for 2004's Thousand Year Door was also the director for the remake. I think the way they were able to take the original game's GameCube soundtrack and reimagine it for the Switch while staying true to the original music was quite impressive. My advice would be to listen to the new soundtrack, and if you hear a song you don't like, simply activate the GameCube badge in the menu. It takes 2 seconds, and see if you like the GameCube soundtrack more. The choice is yours. I think both soundtracks are great. If I had to only pick one, I would pick the new soundtrack. And that's saying a lot because I did, like I said, enjoy the GameCube soundtrack. So, who is this game for? I would say Paper Mario is for everyone, just like its ESRB rating says. But really, Paper Mario is one of, if not the most accessible RPG series. So if you've never played an RPG before, or maybe you want to introduce the RPG genre to your kids, niece, nephew, cousin, anyone in your family, a friend, this is the perfect game to lay that foundation because Nintendo does such a great job explaining the basic RPG mechanics. With all that said, that's not to say that this game isn't also for veterans of the RPG genre like myself, because this truly is an RPG that everyone can and should enjoy. Alright, let's jump in now to discuss the game's overall content. According to HowLongToBeat.com, If you only focus on the main objectives and don't partake in any side quests, it will take you around 31 hours to complete. But if you decide to see and do everything as I did, you're looking at around 56 hours, which is perfectly in line with how long it took me to do everything in Thousand Year Door. To 100% the game, you would need to complete all 30 side quests, cook all 58 unique recipes, collect all 86 badges, complete the Pit of 100 Trials twice, defeat the secret bosses, and complete the title log, which means you will need to essentially scan all 134 enemies in the game, which allows you to see their stats like their HP, defense, and learn what their weaknesses are. It's actually pretty helpful. Doing all of this will earn you the new gold medal cosmetic badge that turns Mario gold. It's strictly cosmetic, guys, and if anything, it serves as proof that you 100% of the game because you literally have to do everything in the game to get this badge. It's basically your walking platinum trophy. This is a new badge that is only available in the remake for Switch, so it's pretty cool. Now, as far as grinding goes, as long as you fight every enemy, you really won't need to do any additional grinding. What I mean by that is, if a fight starts, you don't run away, because there is always the option to run, so just don't run away. By the time I 100% at the game, I finished at level 33. Now, in the original Thousand Year Door, Nintendo capped the level at 30, and in the remake they changed the leveling cap to 99. Now, as mentioned in the last segment, as long as you fight each enemy and don't run away from battles, you won't be under leveled, therefore you shouldn't have a hard time completing the Thousand Year Door. The real challenge comes in the form of completing all the additional content necessary to 100% the game, like the secret bosses and completing the Pit of 100 Trials, which is what it sounds like. There's 100 floors with enemies that you need to defeat in order to move to the next floor. You can't save your progress, and you cannot leave the Pit of 100 Trials to heal and then return where you left off. If you leave the pit, you have to start from the beginning. The Pit of 100 Trials is really a trial of stamina, requiring proper planning and item management and plenty of patience. The pit is also very important because there's a ton of enemies you can only encounter through the Pit of 100 Trials. So if you're trying to 100% the game, you'll need to add all of those enemies that you can only see in the Pit of 100 Trials to your title log. Now, when it comes to the game's emotion and charm, this is an area that the Thousand Year Door really excels in. As we know, Nintendo creates some of the most charming games and characters across all console platforms, and as it was when I originally played the Thousand Year Door 20 years ago, the game is just as charming as ever through its story, NPCs, main characters, and the clever and often hilarious writing. I can't count how many times I literally laughed out loud at the writing. There's a lot of dad jokes in the dialogue that offers some really good, wholesome comedy that I appreciate. Now, when the game isn't telling jokes, they also have some very touching stories to tell that is very much real life. For example, one of the characters' wife passes away while he was at sea, and he blames himself for not being with her when she was sick. So he swore to never sail the seas again, and sailing was the one thing he loved besides his wife. So he lost both the things he loved most because he punished himself for not being there when she died. So the story also touches on some heavier topics that I think we can all relate to in some sort of capacity. Now, when it comes to the replayability, I guess you could use me as a reference. I completed this game 20 years ago and picked up the remake to do it all over again because I really enjoyed this game on the GameCube. Outside of that, there is no New Game Plus mode, so this is the type of game that you might want to revisit maybe every decade or so, or at least that's what I would do. As always, guys, the most important aspect to consider when buying a game, in my opinion, is whether or not you have fun playing the game. Because if it's not fun, why do we do it, right? And I can say with 100% certainty that I had fun from beginning to end, and I was a little sad when the game was finally over. There's so much to love here between the story, the beautiful locations, the main characters, as well as the characters you meet along the way, the writing and the soundtrack. They got the engaging battle system, all the cool badges you can collect. I mean, there's almost 100 badges in the game, which is crazy. This game is just overall a ton of fun. Now, if you're wondering how much it costs to pick up Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, despite it being a remake of a GameCube game, it is still full price at $59.99. Now, to 100% the game, you guys heard me mention it before, it took me around 55 hours, which amounts to a little over $1 an hour, which I think is a great value. Some people feel that Thousand-Year Door shouldn't be a $60 game because it's a remake, and to that, I don't agree or disagree with you, but I can certainly see your point. At the end of the day, we're not in charge of setting the game's pricing, and we all have different opinions on how we determine the value of a game, and all opinions are respected by me and should be respected by everyone. So, if you don't think the game is worth $60, that's fine. And if you do think it's worth $60, that's also fine. Either way. Alright, now it's time to give you guys my final thoughts. Through the passage of time, the only thing I could still remember about the Thousand-Year Door was that I really enjoyed it back in 2004, and as each new entry in the Paper Mario series was released, the Thousand-Year Door was still the one that stood out in my memory as the best in the entire Paper Mario series. So, since I forgot most of the game, I was extremely excited when Nintendo announced that they were remaking the Thousand-Year Door for Switch, because it gave me a good reason to revisit what I remembered to be a great story that I had long forgotten, but I did remember the way it made me feel, and to me, those are the best stories and the best games to revisit. The ones where you remember exactly how you felt after the game ended. So, does the Thousand-Year Door remake still deliver in 2004, or does the game feel antiquated by today's RPGs? Thankfully, the Thousand-Year Door does deliver, and every minute I played of it was time well spent. If you played Paper Mario games in the past, and you maybe didn't really click with it, I think you should still give the Thousand-Year Door a shot, because to me, this is the best in the Paper Mario series, and I would say it's only second to Super Mario RPG as the best in the Mario RPG universe. Let me know in the comments section below if you plan on picking up the Thousand-Year Door, or if you already have, and what your thoughts are on the game. And if you guys have any questions, leave it in the comments and I will be happy to answer them for you. As always, thank you everyone for tuning in, and I hope you all have a wonderful day.